השלום מלכי עליון מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ברכוני לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא צאתכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
It's a wonderful day. It sounds pretty much all around the world, although we know there are funny things going on in the world as well with weather. But now is the time to try to bring some Shabbat peace into our lives. So if you wish to stand or sit, but light the candles that you have in your own home, we bring the light of Shabbat into our lives. We say together,
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת.
And if you are standing, then please feel free to be seated.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. 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 שמעו וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולצילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, שתדברי. כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני Shabbat nekavela. Bohoi v'shalom ma'ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'b'tohola, tohem mone aham segula. Bohi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, a song for the Sabbath day. Mizmor Shir
L'Yom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני.
And as we have a substantial part of our service devoted to remembering Srebrenica this Shabbat, we now have a slightly abridged part of the service. So if you would like to stand and remain standing, or sit and remain sitting, or bob up and down as you wish, please feel free to do so as we go through our liturgy.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Praise be to one to whom our praise is due.
We praise the Eternal One, to whom our praise is due forever.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופיה כי תהילתך. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופיה כי תהילתך. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth shall declare your praise. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth shall declare your praise. Let us praise Adonai, source of knowledge and light, from whom we draw wisdom and insight. Let us savor the fullness of each and every day and fill our souls with the treasures of Shabbat. And let us appreciate these distinctions: sacred from profane, charity from greed, purpose from drift. Let us affirm our covenant as God's people. Let us honor those who study Torah. Let us uphold the truth of ongoing revelation. Let us celebrate the glory of our tradition and draw refreshment from the wellsprings of prayer. Let us respect tradition, encourage creative faith. And let us dress ourselves in the garments of God, compassion for the needy, embrace of the stranger, and then spread the canopy of peace over all the world.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
Take a few moments for silent prayer. It's going to be a 20 minutes remembering Srebrenica.
Yul ratzon imrefi, v'hegion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our redeemer.
שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל בני האדם.
In our synagogue we have traditions that are special to liberal Judaism, such as the words that we have just sung, that we wish peace not only for ourselves but for all Bnei Adam, for all humanity. And so once a year we give over part of our Shabbat service to remembering Srebrenica.
There has been much talk over the past few weeks and months of freedom and building back better, alongside terms such as sacrifice, suffering, struggling, restrictions, inequality, injustice, and of course, sadly, death. But as we emerge from the final COVID-related restrictions and contemplate rebuilding our lives, this year's commemoration of the Srebrenica genocide invites us to take a moment to consider what it has been like for the survivors of the genocide and of other atrocities committed during the 1992-95 Bosnian War, who have spent the past 26 years rebuilding their lives. To even get close to understanding the challenges these survivors have faced, it is worth reminding ourselves of the dreadful events that took place during this war. Following the death of Marshal Tito in 1980 and the subsequent breakup of the former Yugoslavia, many of the former federal states became independent nations. Bosnians chose, via a referendum in March 1992, to become an independent state, the state of Bosnia-Herzegovina. It was to be a multi-ethnic state where Bosnian Croats, Bosnian Muslims, and Bosnian Serbs would continue to live together side by side. However, Serbian leaders forbade Bosnian Serbs from voting in the referendum. Instead, these nationalistic leaders told the Serbs that they were entitled to and would have their own Serbian land. And on 5th April 1992, Serb forces took the first steps to taking Bosnian territory by force to make this happen, laying siege to the capital city of Sarajevo. And so the Bosnian War began. The war was characterized by horrific atrocities, and the term ethnic cleansing became commonplace in our TV news bulletins, a term that encompassed the destruction of homes, the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people, the rape of women and the murder of men and boys. The victims' only crime was that they were Bosnian Muslims. This was once again an attempt to create a living space for a supposedly superior, ethnically pure population on European soil. But this time it was taking place less than 30 years ago. Every year in July, we commemorate one particular atrocity that took place during the Bosnian War, the Srebrenica genocide.
July 1995. Tens of thousands of Bosnian Muslims had fled a Bosnian Serb army offensive and were under siege in Srebrenica, today's eastern Bosnia. The area was meant to be a UN safe zone and was protected by about 600 lightly armed Dutch peacekeepers. But on the 6th of July, the Bosnian Serb army began advancing, taking some peacekeepers hostage, and within days they'd entered Srebrenica itself. The Bosnian Serb army demanded that the Bosnian Muslim fighters hand over all their weapons in exchange for safety. They then took aside men aged between 12 and 77 for what they said would be interrogation. The first killings began just 2 days later. In all, over 8,000 Bosnian Muslims were killed in just 5 days. And over 23,000 women and children were forcibly deported, with reports of widespread torture and rape. Even now, 20 years on, victims are still being identified and reburied.
Sadly, the Srebrenica genocide was not the only mass atrocity that took place during the Bosnian War. One picture captured the world's attention in 1992 when journalists Ed Vulliamy and Penny Marshall visited Omarska and Tronjopolje concentration camps, where Bosnian Muslims from the region of Prijedor were being held, tortured, raped and murdered by Serb forces. 3,176 people were killed in this region alone. At the end of the war, Bosnia was divided by the 1995 Dayton Peace Accords into two areas, primarily along ethnic divisions. The Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, predominantly Bosnian Muslims and Croats, and the Republika Srpska, predominantly Serbians. Children are educated in separate schools according to their ethnicity, and the Republika and the Federation each have their own government, their own flag, their own president, parliament and police force, even though they are part of the same country. Srebrenica and Prijedor are both located in the Republika Srpska. Survivors that return to their homes in Srebrenica and Prijedor report that they are not welcome, that Serbs are living in their houses, that they experience prejudice on a daily basis, and that the local authorities deny the genocide took place. We're going to hear now from a survivor from Prijedor, Subtin Music, who now works as a human rights activist. You will notice that he is wearing a white armband. This is to commemorate that on 31st of May 1992, Serb forces declared that all non-Serbs were required to wear white armbands and hang white sheets out of their houses so that they could be easily identified.
Over the last 2 decades, I have become a political scientist, journalist, and a prominent and recognized human rights activist from Prijedor area. I have rebuilt my home. And my fight began with the collection of people remains, the bones of people killed in their gardens and buried in numerous mass graves and their honorable burials. And my first duty after my return was to take care of one of 8 cemeteries for the so far 3,176 registered innocent victims from Prijedor area. A number that wasn't big enough for the court in The Hague to categorize the events that took place in Prijedor as a genocide. Of the 3,176 killed, 256 of them are women, and 102 of them have been children. On the 23rd of July, 1992, it was later discovered that in one Thursday in my Zecovi in Čarakovo only, 563 innocent civilians were being killed, including men, women, and children, and many of my family members. I found my father's remains in a well in front of the house where he, along with 4 of his friends, were killed. And I immediately recognized him. His bones were in my jumper that he wore that morning when he went to work in the fields. In Bosnia, human rights are not respected, especially the rights of victims and their families. In Trnopolje concentration camp, where they were tortured and killed, including members of my family, a monument stands in honor of the fallen Serbian soldiers. Imagine a monument to a Nazi soldier somewhere in Auschwitz or Dachau. After the Holocaust, we swore that such things would never be allowed to happen again. We repeated never again for millions of times. However, we again witnessed concentration camps and mass graves in the heart of Europe at the end of 20th century in my Bosnia and Herzegovina. The sites of the camps and mass graves remain unmarked, with no monuments to honor the innocent people killed simply because they were different. Remembering them in Republika Srpska is officially forbidden. Omarska concentration camp is now, ladies and gentlemen, owned by the British company ArcelorMittal Steel. And every year we need to put a request to the management of the company to be allowed entry into the former camp to pay respects and tributes to the murdered members of our families. The ArcelorMittal Orbit that stands in front of the Olympic Stadium in London, creation of British very famous artist Anish Kapoor, was built for the 2012 Olympic Games. The sculpture is made with steel and materials from Omarska, an area covered in mass graves. And this is our memorial in exile in United Kingdom.
Subdin and his fellow survivors from Prijedor clearly face many challenges in rebuilding their lives. Not only have they lived through terrible events and lost loved ones in quite horrific ways, but they have the added trauma of the perpetrators of these atrocities being treated as heroes. Another survivor from Prijedor, Nusreta Sivac, is a judge. She was interned in a Massacre camp where she was raped and bore witness to other atrocities. These are her words. I returned to Prijedor some 15 years ago. It is difficult to come back. There is discrimination against returnees. I wasn't able to get my old job back. A former co-worker had taken my apartment, so I had to fight to get him out. When people realized I was back to stay, I came home one night to find Omarska spray painted on my door. One day I was walking down the street in Prijedor and saw one of the guards that I testified against. He had been released, having served 2/3 of his sentence. We stared at each other. He was the first to look away. But alongside these challenges, there are some small seeds of hope planted by brave and committed individuals who work tirelessly to rebuild lives through building peace. Here's another survivor from Prijedor discussing his work.
My name is Kemal Pervelic. I'm the founder of Most Mira. It's a registered charity in England and Wales and here in Bosnia. And Most Mira means a bridge of peace. We are bringing together children and young people from divided communities in the Prijedor region of northwestern Bosnia. I was born into a peaceful time, and I could never imagine that one day this place would become ravaged by war, that neighbor would turn against neighbor. Unfortunately, this is what happened in 1992, with hundreds of people being killed on their doorstep, and thousands of others, including myself, ended up in being taken to concentration camps, where one of my favorite teachers became my torturer and interrogator. The war destroyed peace. It destroyed the normal society so quickly that reconciliation and peace building are going to take decades and many generations. In the absence of any will by the politicians to address these key issues of post-war peace building, the bulk of reconciliation work is left to the grassroots NGOs such as Most Mira. In the last 10 years, we have worked tirelessly on building peace in local communities through art festivals and other art programs involving thousands of students, young people, schools from the Riad region of Bosnia, a committee team of local teachers, as well as volunteers from around the world. The young people have always asked us to provide them with a permanent home where they could run their own peace-building activities all year round. It's located across the road from the local football ground where myself and other villagers were rounded up in 1992 before being taken to the Omarska concentration camp in our neighborhood. The architectural design will transform a war-ruined private house into a vibrant public destination for the arts and learning about peace building. The Peace Center was designed by young Muslim, Serb and British architects working together, mirroring Most Mira's social reconciliation process. Since 2014, they have spent time together in 10 architectural workshops involving local children and community members in the design process.
But not all of the survivors have been able to return to their hometowns and villages. 10,000 Bosnians came to the UK in the 1990s as refugees, rebuilding their lives amongst us in our communities. And as we bring this commemoration of the Srebrenica genocide and other atrocities carried out in the name of ethnic cleansing to a close, we can listen to the experiences of a Bosnian refugee who has settled in the UK and built a life for themselves and their family in Bradford. And as we do so, I urge you to reflect on the role that each of us can play in creating communities where everyone can rebuild their lives in safety. In fact, I urge you to do more than reflect. I urge you to make a pledge that you will act to help others rebuild their lives, to truly, actively love your neighbour as yourself.
I was born and grew up in northwestern part of Bosnia. I was born in Bihać and we lived in the town of Bosanski Petrovac. In the 80s, life was peaceful. I was quite ignorant to what was going on politically within the country, trying to plan my sort of education and what to do with my studies. More or less overnight, the situation became quite intense. We were just rounded up, made to sign a document that we voluntarily give our property to the Serbian Republic of Bosnia and that we will never return, leaving the keys to the property, keys to the car in the garage, and everything was just left as it was. And after a couple of weeks of killings and shootings and, you know, people's homes being burned down and looting, we were basically rounded up at gunpoint at the bottom of the town on the main highway and loaded up on cattle wagons, buses and trucks. As we were leaving the town as a final send-off, the local Serbs, they've lined up the side of the road with machine guns and they've opened fire on the lorries with canvas, and the people inside were literally pushed together, so one bullet would just kill one person and they would hit somebody in a leg and then go through someone else. I think about 15 died. We finally settled in a school in Zenica, central Bosnia again, not far from Travnik. Somebody came and said, Riad, can you help these guys? They've kind of landed outside the school and they're from England. They've opened the back of the lorry and it was stuffed full of toys, toiletries, shoes, cans of food, some medical equipment. On one of the trips they said, Riad, do you want us to try and help you to get out of here? Because they realized that even then now the situation was getting much worse. So I managed to get out with them and within a day or so found myself in Barnsley. We basically started from nothing. We got our first house, a flat. We had one mattress with no bedding, and then we got some settees the following day, and then we got a cooker. So we started gathering things bit by bit. I took part in many activities straight away. Bradford College, we were trying to enroll on as many courses as we could at the time to improve our skills, our language. As a city, we found it welcoming. No community is an outsider, so we never felt any different to anyone else. We always felt we had the same opportunity and a chance to do whatever we wanted to do. I'm working for Bradford Council at the moment, and I kind of ended up doing that through working with refugees to begin with. I think Bradford has experience of welcoming new communities going back centuries, welcoming refugees from Europe, even in recent years, refugees from Africa and from the Middle East. So all that gives it that feeling that no community is an outsider, so everyone seems to be sort of managing well together. It's difficult for anyone that hasn't lived through it to grasp the extreme human emotions and conflict of that nature. Obviously our lives are here, our jobs and everything else. Our kids are born here and they attend schools here. But going back, it kind of brings different kind of memories of us growing up, of happy childhood, friends and relatives back home. In a sense, I'd say that both are our homes.
Love someone in God's name. Love someone, for this is bread of the inner life, without which part of you will starve and die. And though you feel you must be stern, even hard, in your life of affairs, make for yourself at least a little corner, somewhere in the great world, where you may unbosom and be kind.
O God, teach us to show our love for you by loving one another.
I hereby accept upon myself the commandment of the Creator and the pledge to our fellow human beings. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We now move to our concluding prayers. So please rise and read with us. Aleinu l'shabach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, אשר שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגורלנו להמליך מלכותו.
On this day, let us dedicate ourselves anew to the task that our ancestors tried in all their higher moments to fulfill, to bring nearer a time when all your children will understand that they are brothers and sisters, so that one in spirit and fellowship they may be forever united before you. Then shall your sovereignty be established on earth, and the word of your prophet shall be fulfilled.
Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai
ימלוך לעולם ועד.
We remember those who died in recent days in our community, and those who died at this time of the year in years gone by. Hoda Ellis, the mother of Hilton. Michael Collins, the father of Linda Steen. Selwyn Derek Pachter, the husband of Mavis and father of Talia. Sophie Cohen, the mother of Shirley. And Fritz Gerhard Weg, the father of Walter. And we were so fortunate to have the opportunity this afternoon to be with Walter and his children, Jonathan and Rowena, who I was at school with and in Haida with, as they today had the funeral and Shiva prayers for Sylvia. Our love goes out to Walter and his family, and to all those who mourn, as we say together, Zecher Tzadikim Livracha. May all that was dear and good in their lives endure always as a blessing and as a continual influence for good.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחי יכון וביום יכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, באמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל בני אדם, ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated. Great thanks, of course, go to Jane Drapkin. We are so fortunate to have somebody who, apart from being such a powerful presenter, also has such a passionate heart. She would love us to be more engaged with social justice issues. Perhaps consider the pledges at the end of the video. Maybe come back because the video will be on Ark Synagogue.
Yeah, we'll make it available as a separate film.
So that you can experience and play back and maybe share it with other people as well. Thank you so much to Jane, and please do come to Kiddush in a few moments to speak with her. We're hoping she's able to join us. By the look of the chat, she will be able to join us. She's in Ambleside, possibly in a pub, I'm not sure. I hope you are, with a pint in hand and joining us this evening through the powers of technology. But thank you so much for impacting our service so much this evening.
Absolutely, and a big thank you also to John, who behind the scenes helped to make the video a possibility, and of course to Richard on the tech, but also today to Aaron Lyons, who is joining us on the cameras this week for the first time. I think we should recruit more of our young people to help us in the service. It always means their parents drop comments in the chat.
Shabbat Shalom. Also, just to point out that we do hope that Cherie and John Flitton from North Carolina will be joining us in Kiddush, because we, Rabbi Leah and myself, would like to have words with you, very positive words.
To say a big thank you.
And also, tomorrow night is the commemoration of Tisha B'Av, where we're going to be joining with the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism again. That will be at 6:30, and I believe that you can watch where we are. Or
I think you have to go to the Zoom link.
Okay.
I think
and
it's on Zoom.
Which is in our weekly update. And I urge you also to go to your weekly update and to sign up to an event that we're sponsoring with the Wiener Library on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. I don't know that you'll get another chance to watch again, so please do come en masse. It will be, I promise you, an incredibly moving and rewarding evening as the podcaster and author and researcher Rachel Soroti speaks about her new book, We Share the Same Sky. She's going to be interviewed by Stephen Smith, who has been in this synagogue before at Holocaust Memorial Day events. It is the most moving and uplifting of experiences. Find out why your rabbi cries, both tears of joy and sorrow
at the same time.
In the allotment, as I listen to Rachel speaking. So please don't miss out. You do need to sign up. So please go to the weekly update for that. And for those that just want to come together tomorrow night, we're still having a Havdalah at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening as well. For those that just want to come and have some company tomorrow evening.
Absolutely. And just so that Richard knows, we're going to do the Kiddush still on the live stream so that everyone can join in with the blessings. And then we're joining all of you after we finish the Kiddush for the chat on Zoom. We've decided we'll do it this way around to see how that works for everyone.
Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol bnei Adam. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol bnei Adam. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. We might say a quick goodbye actually to the live stream because we seem to have attracted some people who are joining the comments that isn't quite what we need to see.